How's it going, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the James Loud Podcast. Today, our special guest is LeVanna from the Bay Sesh. How are you doing today?
I'm great. Thank you. How are you?
Fantastic. Thanks for coming on the show. It was actually, somewhat short notice. We met last week over at Steve D'Angelo's house.
Yeah.
You were visiting Richard DeLisi when he was in town, and small world, you have your own radio show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me on the show as well. I really like what you do for the culture. I've been following the show for a while. I love the people that you choose to have on here. So it's like an honor for you to include me as well. I got a show on 89.5 FM, KZCT Ozcat Radio in Vallejo.
Really cool.
It's called the Bay Sesh. I've been doing it for a little over 5 years now.
Nice.
Started it Thanksgiving of 2019.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Time sure flies.
I got offered the show. I was doing decided I wanted to create a brand within cannabis when it started. I could quickly see I didn't have the resources to pull together for like licensing and all that. But I figured what I could do was start with like a lifestyle brand, NorCal Flower. And then I was doing that for about a year and I got offered this slot on the radio. And I've actually been a DJ since 1998 when I got my turntables down on Market Street.
Wow.
So I wasn't unfamiliar with that, as well as like having gone to film school and been in film and post-production. So I started DJing at midnight till 2 a.m. for about 2 years. And that started as Houses of Cannabis. And I would play like stony music and talk to people in their cars. Like, are you out in your car smoking weed, late night or whatever? And I just kept doing that. I had some guests on and then it became the Bay Sesh.
Wow.
And as the culture shifted into the legalization, I saw a lot of my friends that were just like sort of stuck on the hill, maybe didn't have a lot, couldn't really promote themselves so much on social media and content and everything like that, feeling left out while some other people were sort of taking that place and filling that hole. So I wanted to make my show about sort of holding that space and telling the stories of my friends from the culture, from the Bay to Humboldt, you know what I mean? And through music and growing a lot. And that's how I found myself playing a lot of Mendo Dope Boys,
Right.
High Grade All-Stars. And I started doing some videos too, but the core foundation of it all is that show in Vallejo.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like there's so much the culture people haven't seen. And it's great to be able to share. I mean, people like yourself being able to share audiences, they'll learn about you, and then maybe you'll talk about me on your show, and people learn about our show. And I feel like, it's an amazing time to be alive. It's an amazing time to be in the industry. It's changed and evolved so much in the last, 15 years, especially. Definitely
Has. Not how exactly we imagined it.
No.
You know what I mean? I'm actually living in Brooklyn right now. I'm not sure that you knew that. I'm still broadcasting the show and I'm in the studio when I'm home visiting here. I've been going there on and off since 2022. And then I home based it there because I just really wanted to see where things went.
Wow.
And one day I was getting off the train and there was a taco truck next to a girl had an ambulance that was a mobile dispensary. And I was like, this is what I thought it was going to be like in California.
Right.
And so, yeah, lots changed in the past few years. And I think we're finally year 5 into recreational legalization here in California, turning a corner. And a lot of things are starting to kind of settle. And the OGs and a lot of people, the real people from the culture are finally getting their platforms and their stuff in the dispensary or their dispensaries or whatever.
Right.
And so I'm glad to have held the torch for this long. And now everybody's sort of getting there with it.
Yeah.
We got a long ways to go though.
We got a long ways to go. And it's really interesting, all the stuff that's going on in the industry in New York, and the bodegas that are in New York. And, I feel like that's a whole interesting, I haven't been out to New York to check it out, but that's a very interesting scene out there from what I hear. Very unstable, but with a lot of potential.
Indeed. There's a relationship. There's always been a relationship between us and, what is the biggest consumer market in the world and the biggest, was the biggest supplier or grower, cultivators of not just cannabis, but food here in California. It's not going to change too soon. There's an obvious relationship there, right?
Right.
But now, with their freedoms and the way things are going, it's pretty interesting. It's like LA was right after, with the gray area.
Totally.
There, but it's a 3-year long gray area and it's New York City. So it's
Yeah.
Much, much different.
Different energy out in New York than LA. Even though they're both big cities and amazing, and in the United States, there's totally two different energies and people are different. Both great. I like people from LA and I like people from New York. They all have their intricacies and it's a lot of fun always.
Yeah, for sure. It's interesting to see people like Buddy's Bodega opening up a shop in LA now, and like the Astor Club opening up and bringing what they've been doing there to the LA scene now too. And of course it could start in LA. Maybe there's a little more freedoms here. Yeah. I'm more of a NorCal Bay Area person and I love it up here.
Me too.
You know, but I would hope that we could do like the Astor Club thing model is really cool. Like we don't have anywhere here. I'm still getting weed and like hanging. I don't drink alcohol. So I'm still hanging out in my car and smoking weed after I get it. I don't really have anywhere to go, like hang out with people too much.
Right. There's only a handful of clubs in California that allow smoking.
Right. Cool thing about California is we got backyards at a lot of bars and things like that, like not exactly to go. And then in New York, I experienced these lounges and these places like Metro Bud Lounge is a place. And you can just go, you know, chill. They got like video games and couches and like meet other stoners and kick it with them and like have those conversations you get to and chill things you get to have for that.
Nice. So yeah, let's dive into a little bit of history. Tell me about yourself, how you got started smoking.
First time I remember smoking weed, I definitely like wanted some dank, right? Because I was raised by RBL Posse and I knew all about not wanting Bammer. I wanted dank, right? And so on 7th grade, Mill Valley Middle School, I asked the kid from 8th grade, Dave Ross, to buy a Twomp sack from him of dank. And I got that. And I had a bong. I had a Guara bong at the flea market, one of those old like purple like plastic tube ones,
like the knockoff graphics ones.
Basically, but these were knockoff graphics. And we went and smoked the bowl of that. Chris and my pipe bonged together in the bushes by Mill Valley Middle School.
Nice.
And I don't know. I feel like I just like loved weed ever since then, and like dank weed for sure. When it went legal and everything here, I think I started like, you know, planting seeds and stuff, went in like maybe like 98, like around when I could get my medical, like around 18.
Nice.
Then, you know, people I knew grew. I kind of found out that my dad grew from somebody from high school because he was like, oh my God, like your dad grows a hella good weed. But I didn't really know. I was a little bit sheltered in that way. And then I got, I think I started trimming for people in like 2005 in the Crest Side in Vallejo.
Oh, wow.
And they were like hanging the trees like whole.
Mm-hmm.
And we were just all sitting around this big circle with like the whole tree hung like that, trimming them with like paper scissors.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Do you guys trim wet or trim dry?
Then I feel like it was dry.
Yeah. We started trimming wet a long time ago.
Really?
We trimmed wet first and then we hang it and then trim it off the bud or off the stem.
So, off the stem.
Yep. And then we'd also have the fresh frozen that was wet. So all the fine trim, we'd put that in the freezer and make bubble hash.
You're doing that right away,
in the 90s.
Huh?
In the 90s, you know, originally we didn't do anything with our trim, but then once somebody figured out how to do bubble hash, we started freezing all our trim to make the bubble hash. And amazing stuff.
That's so cool.
Yeah. And then we didn't even have bubble bags. Originally, there was a silk screen.
Right.
And you used solo cups and you poured it over the silk screen. You stirred it. There was like this recipe, you know, and you had to stir it one way and then stir it the other way and then scoop it out over the silk screen and let it, we used to let it dry on the silk screen.
Who showed you how to do all that?
So my buddy Micah showed me some of the stuff, who I was partners with for quite a while. And we had a group of a bunch of us that just kind of shared the information between the group. And, you know, it's like trimming. We didn't pay trimmers. We all helped each other trim, you know, and this was in the 90s. So like there was trim parties.
Yeah.
It was like, we're going to go party at someone's house. And
yeah,
I remember watching, the late 90s, early 2000s, watching the disc set of In Living Color. We watched those over and over and over while we trimmed. And I think I still have them and they're sticky with resin. So from way back in the day. But yeah, it was it was a different world back then. And, you know, we had knife hits. We didn't have dabs really.
Right.
You know, we smoked extract on coal with the little tube. And then we also did knife hits. And knife hits were you'd smoke the, you know, old school hash, hot, press it between two knives. It was like a super hot dab, ruin your throat. Good stuff.
Yeah, so hot. I think us, the generation of us that did that, have some pretty damaged lungs from that, dude.
Probably.
Yeah, and like the hot. I mean, we were doing hot dab, and then we were just doing hot dab.
Gravity
Temperature
bongs
wasn't a question for a long time.
Yeah. Did you do gravity bongs back in the day?
I did hot knife gravity bongs before.
Oh yeah.
Too. Did you ever do that?
Yeah. That'll wreck your life. I had
Cut the milk carton off and like put it over the sink.
I had a friend who jumped into a swimming pool with a 5-gallon Alhambra, hit himself in the face with it, basically.
Oh, man.
And then I have another friend, he had his gravity bong with a 2-liter that was in a cooler in his closet at his parents' house.
Oh my
so
God.
disgusting. It's
Gross water.
Super gross. Yeah, super gross, but we all had our fun ways of smoking. And I mean, the glass pipes back then, everyone had it was before all the Chinese glass. So it was done by like artists and
right.
Yeah, it was all produced by real artists, and they were sold at the head shops. And, they were still fairly inexpensive, but they were pretty amazing. The work that went into them. And yeah, I mean, late 90s. I had
my one pipe for hella long. I remember the skull pipe I had, and it finally broke, but I really had that thing for years.
Yeah, they still have amazing glass. Don't get me wrong, but there's a lot of Chinese glass. And before there was the Chinese glass, there was a lot of artists that made it from everywhere from Eugene, Oregon, Portland, Washington, all over Massachusetts. We were getting stuff from all over.
Well, head shops were so cool, and that's like where you would learn things back in the day.
Totally.
Find stuff at head shops and grow shops,
Yeah, and you could get them on the lot if you went to a dead show, or you could go to Telegraph Avenue in Berkeley and you'd be able to get some. Telegraph was a big deal.
Exactly. I was going to say Telegraph or Hay Street.
Yeah, we had seashell pipes back in the day that were like resin they were like a resin material on a seashell, and we put a screen in there. And
the screen, you have to go get a new screen.
Oh yeah, you'd have to get new clean screens. Off Telegraph, there was a place called Gypsy Trader, and this guy Roz owned Gypsy Trader, and he was a character. He'd like to wheel and deal.
Yeah,
but we used to ride skateboards to Telegraph, or hopefully get a ride from somebody before we even were able to drive. So.
Yeah, shout out to Mighty Quinn. We got Mighty Quinn in Santa Fe, and that was all like really good smoke shop. Smoke shops are so dope in Cali.
Yeah.
There's like 10,000 of these like smoke shops in New York.
Mm-hmm.
And they all have just Amazon, like
it's all the same exact thing.
Signs, like Amazon runts, and then these dusty, like Bart Simpson, like plastic bongs, like the ones I started on in 12, but worse. And like no supplies. It's like smoke shops are supposed to be awesome. You're supposed to go in there and find all these cool little things and like ways to smoke. And
yeah, I mean, I like the hippie side of it for sure. Like the smoke shops that have the tie-dye, and then they have your scab, you got to get some Nag Champa. You got to get some tie-dye. You got to get, you got to be able to go through the list. And if they have crystals, it's a bonus, it's like,
exactly.
I'm all about the crystals too. Like I have a pretty big collection of crystals that I've collected over the years, and all that stuff, tapestries, all that, it's fun. Stuff. And then the custom glass. And I have a wide variety of pipes that are all different sizes and all, most of them I don't use now. I don't want to drop or break them. Chemdog, I have some hand blown Chemdog pieces, the Chemdog blue, that are pretty amazing. I mean, one of them right here.
That's Chemdog
one right It's got some of the Grateful Dead millies in it.
Check it out.
Oh yeah.
Gorgeous. Yeah, they don't make them like this anymore, right?
They don't. I mean, they do. Don't get me wrong, they do. But
and there's cool new stuff.
There's cool new stuff. And Chemdog still blows glass. You can look at his glass online. People can still buy it. It's not as easy as it was back then to get them from him, I'm sure, because they're in more high demand. All these things that are slowly going away. And then we have China, who's producing glass hand over fist, and they're selling it for $5, just undercutting the market. And a lot of people are okay with the Chinese glass.
Yeah. I mean, that could be said about pretty much all markets.
Pretty much everything. Yeah.
Yeah. But I still go for quality. You know what I mean? I'll still go to a farmer's market before I'll go, if they have a choice.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Over Safeway anytime or whatever.
Me too. Quality over quantity.
A lot of people eat McDonald's and drink Coke, and there's a market for everything. You know what I mean? So like
there is.
China can't undercut you. I mean, they just can't do handmade like that, or, buying artisanal glass, if that's what you might call it.
Yeah. Even flour, we go back into the quality of flour. It's like you can grow at a large quantity and you can get a pretty good quality, but you're not going to get the artisanal quality. It's very rare.
Why do you think that is?
Well, I think anything when you're trying to replicate it at that scale, it's much more difficult to control all the variables. And so the guy who's putting his love into the plant, and it goes like tomatoes in your backyard. You can go buy you can get a Berkeley Bowl, you can get pretty good tomatoes. But then if you grow your own tomatoes in your backyard, you can pick them when they're perfect. You can grow each one exactly how you want. And there's also the secret ingredient with all of it is love.
I was going to say, and energy, right? Because you were talking about how much you love crystals.
Totally.
And like why, I think that first, someone couldn't be incapable of giving all that love to a bigger grow and all that, but it's not the focus in a lot of these places anyways.
I know a couple of people that do a really good job at scale.
I do know people. I worked for like, I wish I could remember her name right now, but one of the women cultivators over at FloraCal.
Yeah.
Would have us, they would be telling each plant they love it. It's beautiful. They would have us doing that as we were bucking it, trimming it, putting it into the jar and sending it off, like doing that whole energy. And it was phenomenal.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think that there's got to be like an energetic, spiritual like thing with growing these THCA crystals on these plants that's present in tomatoes, but perhaps even more present because it's crystals in these plants,
Yeah, I mean, there's got to be alignment there. And I have my friends over at SF Canada that crush it. They do a really good job. Fig Farms in the Bay Area, they do a really good job. There's a bunch of grows that I think they do a great job for what it is, especially at scale. But there's still something to be said for the homegrown and to allow people everywhere to grow homegrown weed. I think that it's also just such an amazing experience because then there's a story behind it, and then you're consuming something that you help produce. And so you understand pretty much every day what happened in the life of that plant if you're smoking it or you're sharing it with your friends. And there's some alignment there that's just amazing.
I agree. I love growing my own and I always make use of it. And, a lot of times it's not as good as what all my friends grow. So I end up like sort of giving that to someone that might need it and then smoking the other weed from other friends that I like maybe better. But it's always comes in valuable.
Yeah.
The experience itself grounds me. Love being in the garden and like having something to cultivate and grow like that and all the little smells that come along with it. I also love juicing my cannabis raw.
Yeah.
The leaves and the little nugs, like they'll juice the leaves, but then the little nugs I'll put into like smoothies with some fruit from my garden too.
Yeah.
And that's something I can't really like at this point get, although I hope down the line I could maybe go to the grocery store and buy like a frozen pack of like baby nugs that were super organic. I don't want, I didn't spray these either. So I don't want it sprayed with something weird because it's so fresh and raw.
Totally.
But that, and you learn that to respect the people that are the weed that was grown so well, you realize like,
how I'm difficult it is.
I'm going to pay some money for that. Cause like it's not as good as my weed. I think it teaches you that too. And to be like, maybe maybe I don't have time and energy and I'm not that good at growing weed. So maybe I should just buy other people's.
It requires a lot of energy, a lot of time, a lot of repetition to grow really good flower. And not everybody appreciates it either. Some people are okay with mediocre. Mediocre everything.
And also mediocre, what is that anyways? I think it's like,
subjective.
Subjective indeed. It should smell good and taste good and make you feel good.
It should.
But like lots of people, because I did some bud tending work out in New York, got a good read on the the people. But a lot of people, especially they don't really want like it to be so strong. They want it. They're actually looking for like lower THC weed.
Some of the older people, especially.
I was going to say, and that's a good market though if we're talking business. You know what I mean? That's the big market. The baby boomers.
They come in looking for some stuff that reminds them of the flower back in the 60s or 70s.
They're nostalgic weed. My mom always talks about the Acapulco Gold. That's her nostalgic weed. She's born and raised in the Bay Area.
It was a big deal. Yeah. Northern Lights even is pretty nostalgic for a lot of us.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Piff.
Cuban Black Haze, Piff. Yeah, Piff is cool.
Is there a difference between Piff and Haze?
No, Piff is definitely a type. So Piff comes from the Cuban Black Haze, and it's I believe it's an S1 of the Cuban Black Haze. So it is definitely hazy, but I feel like it's on the more mild side of haze, and they get that characteristic with the terpenoline and limonene A lot of it comes from places like Colombia. There's genetics from Africa that have that characteristic in there. And usually it's associated with a really strong effect, but with the piff, it's not that strong. And I feel like it's uplifting, and then it just kind of mellows off and it makes you feel really good. And the piff always makes me feel great. It's one of those ones, my buddy Josh Freeman from Sebastopol grows piff and Cuban black. Yeah. And it's really great. He's actually rolling me up some right now.
Oh, really?
And the taste is good. It tastes good down to if it's grown correctly, it tastes good down to the roach, and it has a unique flavor profile. It's not purple candy gas like everybody likes, like a lot of people like. It's got a little bit of the hazy, but it's really an amazing cultivar, and I would love to see us getting back into more of the varieties of cannabis that are just outside the box a little bit, adding some more diversity, some more of the old school stuff. Train wrecky stuff is good. I like train wreck, but I also like Durban poison, and I also like Romulan, like going back to some Romulan. That's a popular Bay Area genetic that we had. I mean, it's from all over, but we definitely had it in the Bay Area. It was hot. It was real hot for a minute.
Yeah.
And then we had some European stuff, and I really like some of the European genetics that they took California genetics and molded them their way. And there's some really interesting stuff over there, like the Liberty Haze. But some of the hazes are a little bit too strong for people because they don't want to take just a half a hit. They want to smoke like 3 or 4 hits. And they do, and some people get heart palpitations and stuff like that. Whereas I think that the stuff that leans on the sedative side is more popular right now, more of the indica. But it all goes in waves. We talk about it a lot. I think 80%, more than 80% of the market is purple candy right now, and people want purple flower.
Right. I mean, I think that there are a lot of those people that think they're smoking purple weed or smoking like hemp sprayed. I
think there's a Runts and Gelato.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gelato 33.
I always smoke Runts and Gelato. I love those though. But it's my install. It's like I think it's like regional at this point, almost like regional tastes. What's your nostalgic flavor?
Cat piss.
Cat piss?
Cat piss from the Bay Area. Yeah. We talk about it a lot on the show. I'm doing a documentary later this year. We're going to do one on cat piss. We have some great stories. We got some great storytellers.
Yeah.
And there's amazing history with cat piss, and there's a lot of argument on where it came from, who created it. A lot of people want to take credit for creating it. And I believe a lot of people did create their version of cat piss.
Right.
And it's an aroma. It's something that smells like ammonia.
Yeah. And
people relate that to cat piss. And so it is very possible. It's not like the name Blue Dream, where it's like, okay, the Hayes brothers, they created the Blue Dream. We can trace that back to them. And that's a very specific name. We have something that describes an aroma. So anytime someone in Kentucky or Florida or LA or San Diego or the Bay Area, which it was very popular here, they grow something and it's got some ammonia, the first thing out of a lot of people, they're like, cat piss. And
I remember when cat piss came around. Yeah.
The real cat piss was
like cat piss. They're like, oh, it really does. It's kind of gross, but it smokes hella.
It smoked hella good. And the thing is it was the ugliest weed. And so I love ugly weed.
Yeah. I'm looking at ugly weed is like catching my eye now after seeing all this like weird. I had a whole revolution in New York. I didn't know what terp sprayed was. I didn't know what was. Oh, yeah. I've been just on the hill trimming, staying out of that stuff for a while. So I was like, why is this like look like this, but and I've smoked a couple of these like sparkly, purpley.
Oh yeah. Some of the stuff that's rolled in THCA where they toss it in THCA. So it's, especially if it's
is that
sticky.
The sparkle thing?
Yeah. So they have they call them snowballs or snow caps. I'm not a big fan personally. Yeah. It's like Moon Rocks 2.0. And I wasn't a really big fan of Moon Rocks, and they had their heyday and it went relatively quickly, which I think is going to be the same thing. So, I mean, I want to taste the real flower. Same thing with the sprayed terps where they're infusing different flavors. I don't know how safe it is for one thing, but I want the flower to represent the genetics and, the effort that the grower went through, not the person who's infusing the flavor.
Yeah. Yeah, no. I mean, there's, it's a market for the flavor stuff, and that's that. But I personally, no, thank you.
Flavor is so subjective. And all these things are so subjective to the individual from one person to the next. It's like, I mean, I think I can tell somebody what good flower is, but it's all very personal. And, with your own individual relationship with the plant and relationship with these flavor profiles. And at the end of the day, it's an experience, right? So
yeah, I mean, it's aromatherapy.
Yeah.
But I think I read somewhere that the terpenes are what inform our endocannabinoid receptors, which cannabinoids to take into the system to, send out. So I don't know if I'm right on that. I'm pretty sure I read that somewhere.
I believe that is correct. And I think
we don't know so much more about it.
We're just still scratching the surface. They just came out with the white papers on flavorants, which are basically thiols and esters and alcohols that are in the plant, stuff like that. And so we're just still scratching the surface of it. We're getting a better understanding. And I love the fact that that's advancing. But, it can all be traced back also to our relationship to the data points that we've experienced in our life. So you've smelled different types of rose, or you tell different types of orange. Is it orange blossom? Is it orange peel? Is it orange juice? Is it orange extract? I mean, is it fake candy orange terps? There's so many different things. And the more data points we collect over time, whether it's with food or with life experiences, that's how we see, that's our lens we see the world under.
Right.
And so that's the pretty amazing part, is like all these different terpenes and different combinations of terpenes. I guess there's 40,000 different terpenes in existence that they know of, which is pretty amazing. And it's just the wide variety of stuff that we're going to be able to experience over the next 10 years. I mean, I think that's going to change from the purple candy to hopefully some other interesting things.
The hash burger, have you smelled that? It
smells like In and There's some greasy. There's a bunch of greasy. Donnie Burger's pretty greasy too.
Yeah.
So what would you consider nostalgic as far as genetics? What takes you back when you smell?
Well, we talked before about the Champelli was the terp that I was always chasing down. But yeah, that's the weed I always wanted to smoke again. And then the Granddaddy Purple when it was good.
Yeah.
In the purple days, perps and everything.
Oh yeah, purple was trendy back in the day before it wasn't.
Right. And it wasn't purple, actually, the weed.
Well, we had real GDP that was dark purple.
Really?
There was the Ken's GDP. Some of them, they weren't super dark. But then we had I remember my friends going super dark GDP where the leaves were black and plants were real short. And it was super floral. It was like the first floral before all the candy stuff. It was floral gas.
Floral. So I was chasing the rosé around for a while because this rosé that Florical was growing at a time was so good and sexual terps. You know what I mean? It was really fun because we had 50 trimmers and they're all super stoners. And so you can see a good data point of what everyone kind of says. And that was definitely one of those just everyone's ooh, can't get enough of it. You're just oh my gosh.
I wonder if it's related to the creme rosé from Aficionado. They had this one, Leo had this one, at least my buddy had the phenotype of it that was rosewater terps. It was rosewater, amazing. It wasn't the most complex, but it was it smelled like perfume almost.
Yeah. A perfume, but a sweet undertones and then all that flavor in your mouth. We were pressing it and it was lavender, rosin.
Oh, I bet it was amazing.
Yeah. And then they had another one over there called Rollins, which was a Nigerian land cross and a lemon. And that was a really fire and also super high. I miss weed that really does get you super yonked. Garth Cultivator smoked some of maybe his Hello with me, his Hello strain. And that was the last time that I really hit some weed and was just I coughed so hard, but it was that cough, the expander cough where your lungs are doing things and then you're about to be whatever.
Yeah.
And then just not just bloodshot eyes, but blood red eyes.
Yeah.
And just that, I'm hella high right now. I haven't really been getting that from any bud too much for a while.
That's why you dab.
That is why I dab. Yeah.
Right. It'll take you there.
Yeah. But that weed took me there, and back in the day, I think weed took us there a little more. And, I don't know if we watered down all of the landrace genetics and we're never going to have that potency back, or is there
the potency's
science
still
going to
there.
bring us back?
It's you got to convince these people to grow some of these longer flowering these longer flowering varieties.
Well, people got to pay for that because if you think, you want to grow twice as long flowering time, that's going to cost twice as much.
Yeah.
And that's like, definitely feeding into the lack of, I think, like more quality stuff on the market here is like, if you're going to push the price down, that people, the math isn't mathing in California right now. They really got to fix it.
Well, we were talking about the Northern Lights and we were talking about haze. And just off the top of my head, the PIF is NL5 times haze, I believe. It's Northern Lights times haze is what makes the PIF. And same thing with the Fort Collins cough. When
I smoked the PIF in New York, it tasted like Northern Nights a little bit to me.
Yeah, because it is. It's Northern Lights times haze.
Okay.
And same thing with the Fort Collins cough. It's another amazing. That one's pretty strong. Actually, the Fort Collins cough is pretty strong, and it's got this crazy flavor that's unmistakable. That's musky. It's got a nice musky characteristic to it. That's unique to the Fort Collins cough. But
do you think people can dial down the flowering time, or you think that's
intricate
to the success of a really good like psychedelic sativa? Because we're in the right. You're saying,
I think someone made a point the other day that said the longer it takes to flower, the longer the high, the longer the effect.
Right.
But we can breed into. I've seen stuff bred into shorter flowering varieties for sure, and it's a lot of the stuff has gotten shorter over time. But there is a relationship to terpenes and structure, terpenes and flowering time. There's all these interconnected traits. And so through work, through effort, like if you have breeding goals where you're like, I like this specific flavor, over time you can breed those to shorter flowering times. Sour diesel. We want sour diesel and we want to capture this exact thing that tastes good, smells good, has a similar effect, but it doesn't take 12 weeks. It only takes 8 weeks. And that is possible. I think those things are possible, but they take a lot of work and they take a lot of effort. And, some of these passion projects don't pay out for a long time.
Right.
So it's something that you do out of passion. And, these are all fun things, but I don't know that everybody wants to smoke haze, and that's okay. But I think variety is good too, because there's a lot of us that do like smoking haze or do like smoking interesting and different, unique experiences. So, because I feel like terpenes have a lot to do with the effect. And so,
heck yeah.
At the end of the day, I want to try different effects for different times. I like Skittles. Don't get me wrong. I love the taste of Skittles. Skittles is amazing, but it also has a ceiling. So it only gets you so high. Like for me, the Skittles high, it takes me up to about here. It never really, like as much as I smoke, I could smoke it all day. It never takes me, but it's a great social flavor.
Yeah.
You can smoke it with everybody and most people like it. It doesn't get them too high. And for maybe novices, it gets them super high or whatever. But like, I think for people that are experienced smokers, it doesn't take them above that threshold. Whereas you take something like some hazes or some Durban poison, for example, you smoke a couple puffs, it gets you here. Smoke a couple more, it gets you here. And that never ends. You can keep smoking more and it just keeps getting you more high.
Yeah.
So and those are fun experiences.
I'm like, where's that weed at?
Yeah, there's Durban poison. There's people, Redbeard's got his red Congolese and Durban poison. And those, there's people still doing it. There's some people in San Francisco, some people in Santa Cruz. They're harder to find though. But
well, I'm interested to find out because a lot of these like psychedelic sativas are Southeast Asian. I feel like the land races too.
And there is some, I think Southeast Asia is where we got the intersex traits, the hermaphrodite stuff from, which that's heavily been bred into the genetics. So we have issues with hermaphrodites now. So, but yeah, people just need to stress test their weed more. I think the breeders, the guys growing and the guys putting stuff out need to do more stress testing.
Right. Take that job like real seriously and really like.
Well, if they don't, someone else will.
Right.
At the end of the day.
True. What do you feel like's the stress like
hardest thing to grow?
No, the easiest. Like
the easiest,
most least stress.
Oh, the easiest. The one if you want to feel really good about yourself, you grow Blue Dream.
I thought you were going to say wedding cake, but yeah, okay, Blue Dream.
Wedding cake's a good example, but I would say Blue Dream is the best example. It's the apical of structure. So it has in my opinion, it is as far as structure goes and easy to grow. It's very easy to grow. If you want to feel good about yourself, grow Blue Dream. If you want to feel bad about yourself, you should grow some OG Kush.
Yeah.
So an OG, for me back in the day, it was OG Kush. It was also Girl Scout cookies, was like low yielding, hard to grow, very finicky.
I know. I was like so excited to finally get it. And then the nugs were like this big.
Same thing. Trainwreck, I feel like, is another one. Yeah. So Trainwreck had like the really like these clusters and really bad node spacing. But Blue Dream is like this strong plant, just easy to grow. You even if you're not a good grower, you can get really good flower out of it. It's really, really simple and straightforward. I feel like the more you push it, the bigger it'll get. So what are the genetics you've been smoking on lately?
I brought some sun-grown, full-term sun-grown that I was super stoked to find that my buddy grew that was like a cross of Sunset Sherbet and gelato and ice cream cake and runts and OG.
Nice.
I was like, that sounds all good.
Yeah.
I went and got some of Mendo Dope Boy's Heady OG at the Organican, which is fire. And I was stoked because it was like $20 for an eighth.
Yeah.
Which just felt like we've normalized again. I'm like, sweet, I can go get an eighth of like some decents for $20 plus tax. And that's their outdoor and it's good too. And I was like excited to see it's like kind of shaggy because OG is shaggy. That's it. You know what I mean? It's real OG. Okay, there we go. And tastes good.
My OG was just super dense and it didn't have very many leaves. It was really easy to trim.
Really?
Pine cones. Yeah, it has the nested bracts, so it doesn't have a lot of like crazy shape, but it look like pine cones. But outdoor OG is like some of the best.
Yeah, from the 707, I swear. Yeah. It's definitely good goes good with that terroir.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, OG's a special one. And it's making a comeback. I feel like OG's definitely making a comeback along with all the other stuff. Sour should make a comeback too.
Sour and haze. This will be the year of sour and haze for sure. People are going to have to switch over to that.
For sure. Tell us about your radio show.
So like right now it's drive time, which is super cool. It's 3 to 6 p.m. on Wednesdays. I'm actually going to reduce it down to 2 hours because when I'm in New York, I'm broadcasting it from there. So when I'm here in the studio, I go in the studio and I play like, you know, smoking music, stoner music to smoke to, definitely music you could put on for your garden.
Yeah.
And then we're an independent radio station, so I include independent artists. I always like try to give women like an open door, like if whatever you're doing, if you're a woman, you can come in and talk about your thing and I'll play your music, or if it's like fashion, whatever. Nice. I don't do a ton of interviews though. I do sometimes do that. And I have the YouTube channel where I've gone out and about sort of like I call it like Mr. Rogers' neighborhood on weed. Like I'm out in New York, I'm down in LA, I'm talking to people from other sessions. And like I said, I started playing a lot of Mendo Dope Boys, Garth Cultivator, High Grade All Stars, and a lot of cultivator music beyond like reggae that you might think of as like the first music. There's a lot of it. Mm-hmm. So through that and playing that music and that station and that show, I've got like the people that listen to me in Vallejo and all the people that tune into OzCat online too, as my sort of community. But I always have Mendo Dope Boys on every year. We do an interview. They're going to come into the studio, but it's always been, you know, COVID and everything. Through like them and Garth Cultivator, I've kind of grown the network and my community on like my Instagram,
right,
of growers internationally. Because they've got this great community. So
that's the best thing about radio and the internet.
Yeah.
Is the international community can tap in.
Right, exactly. Like I love the internet. It's tough with the shadow banning, obviously. Mm-hmm. And I love my YouTube channel because I love to do the show and tell and everything.
Right.
And I had like Mike Measy, I don't know if you know who he is. He's saying I got 5 on it, the hook, mm-hmm. but he's also a 3rd gen grower from, you know, a Mendo family.
Right.
And everything else. So I had like play his music and have him on. And it's sort of like the Bay culture. I represent, like I'm from, you know, Vallejo and Mill Valley also. But I've got connections in New York from the rave scene and being a DJ and all that. So I took the vibe to New York of like what we know to be our culture of like growing and patience. So I call it now, I'm starting to call it now the culture of compassion.
Nice.
I guess. Because it's a little bit of a different view. When I first started working in cannabis, it was all about like the patience and like medicine and everything. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean, I kind of just like have this show every week on the radio and I play the music there, and it's grown to be like more artists and a lot of Mendo dope though. And a lot of like, I just love playing them. I just love them. Shout out to them. They're so dope.
Totally.
And the other people associated. And then I do the videos and everything outside. And now in New York, I met this guy, Jimmy Young, who does pro cannabis media. And I'm the California correspondent for that now, which is like Weed Talk News. He offered it to me and I just decided to take it to be the person, because I want to be, you know, I feel like I'm going to offer some good stories up and tell the stories to the rest of the audience, because he's from Boston, Massachusetts, and there's like all these other correspondents on there from different states. So I kind of enjoy watching the show. It's just every week, just like everybody telling, people like me telling the news from their states. And by the way, I haven't done any of this for a penny so far.
Wow.
I've done this out of like my love of the culture and to want to like be I told all, you know, all my friends, and they're kind of all starting to come around and stuff, and people in their own time to have a voice and to tell their story when it's time. You know what I mean? So I'm like holding the spot. I'm doing the show every week and so I don't make new content. I'm sure with your podcast here, it's, you know, it's a lot to create content all the time and promote it and post it and honor every story that comes on.
Totally.
You know what I mean?
Well, I see us as kind of storytellers, and we're able to record some oral history. Like for me, it's all about the oral history side of it. And hopefully in 50 years, people look back and be like, yeah, that was pretty cool. These guys are really weird.
And that's why I love that you're doing it, though. I mean, these are great stories, and there's so many angles to it. When I saw that you were doing a lot of people that I was hoping to might come on my show or coming on your show, but I'm like, that's great. He's doing it. Like, it's getting told.
Yeah,
you know
and
and it is a community, and that's kind of what it's about too. It's not competition.
We're all in this together, and I feel like it's a beautiful, amazing thing right now. It's so great. The industry in a lot of ways is amazing. You know, in a lot of ways, it's also scary and all, but that's life with everything. But yeah, to be able to record some of these people like Richard DeLisi.
Yes.
Yeah, you having him. You need to get him on the show. He is amazing. He's a great storyteller. He's got his adventures. We filmed some good stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and then both of the D'Angelo brothers are characters.
Right.
So yeah, they've got their stories too.
Yeah, it's time for the stories to be told and for like that torch of compassion to be held. And so when I started Bay Sesh, I always called it like a weekly sesh to inspire our evolution.
Right.
Meaning like our evolution from like traditional to what it is now. Mm-hmm. Whoever wants to participate and do what they're doing, let's support them. You know, let's invite the OGs. Let's invite the new people that are going to bring something new to the table too.
Yeah.
And like, let's find ways to come together over this beautiful plant, this thing we all love.
Yeah, totally. Well, it's an amazing thing that brings us all together. The people from all walks of life that would never. She is amazing. Yeah. I think people from all walks of life can sit at the same table and have a great conversation about something that they love. And, you know, it's something that unites us all and makes the world a better place.
It really does. It brings compassion and empathy. It's proven. It's scientifically proven. Like we are really giving a lot to the world with this plant and by cultivating it and sharing it. And we don't want that to be forgotten in the hustle bustle of trying to survive in the industry or make a dime or get, somewhere.
Yeah. So how do you see the future of the industry? If you're looking 5 years or 10 years into the future, what do you see going on?
I think like the thing is the economics of it, right? Like Canada and Mexico's been gearing up everybody's going to have to go legal.
Yeah.
And right now the argument is like, oh, declassify and I'm like, unclassify it. You know, I've been told
deregulate.
By some people from DC that like, because my whole thing is like, look, it's reefer madness. It's built on a lie. Can they just give up the lie already? Yeah. And like, but they won't. So we're going to have to go with this, like, you know, starting with declassification or not, but we're going to argue about it.
We're going to reschedule instead of deschedule.
The economics of it, period, it's just got to be a commodity. It's especially when we're competing on the north and the south with, you know, Canada and Mexico. Obviously, there's got to be a commodity there. We've got to get interstate trading going or, opened up. That's ridiculous. It's happening, whatever. I think like, unfortunately, like for the farmers, I think that it's going to just end up being in the category of all the other ag. You don't really know. Farmers aren't ballers. You know what I mean? Like those days of
farmers are farmers. You can be super successful whether you grow tomatoes or corn or whatever. If you love what you're doing, I think that's the most important thing. And the whole rock star thing, it's like whatever. But like at the end of the day, if you're all about the plant, the whole ag model where we can be farmers, that is fantastic. Where you can actually have a job doing it, regardless of everything else. If you can have a job doing it where you can make a successful living out of yourself, it all comes down to how hard you want to grind anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, it's not going to be it's going to push, once it's on legal, it's a regular thing. It's not going to be worth so much. And so it's going to be. There will be. Yeah. There will be. Mm-hmm. And I think that's also has a lot to do with freshness, and there's a lot to find out. I mean, and there's everything else. I mean, there's all the medicinal things. There's the raw aspect of it, I think is going to be huge.
Yeah.
That it's completely untapped. You know what I mean? The cosmetics of it, everything. I mean, it's going to be integrated fully into our lives. It's a food, it's a fiber, it's a building material. You know what I mean? So it's just like we're in a startup market here in California, within a startup market in the country, within a global startup market. So the growth rates are going to just be going up everywhere forever for the next 10, 20 years.
Who knows how long? Yeah.
Yeah. In all kinds of directions.
Yeah. Lots of jobs could be created. We start doing hempcrete and some of these other things. Yeah. It's like, man, we can start using it for building materials and.
Which are some of the biggest carbon wasting issues that must be addressed, you know, whether people want to, whatever. I mean, and peak oil was a while ago. That's getting done. Even the Saudis are like gearing up for something new. There could be biofuel, I don't know.
Sure. Soil remediation, all kinds of
soil remediation. You can harvest it 3 times a year. So like not just in like the cannabis field I kind of just like, let's just call it the same thing. We're kind of the same thing. It's not though. Because you could it's just that like the greater economic system, that's where it's like, we'll see, other things need to be corrected and fixed in the regular economy before full throttle.
Totally agree.
But yeah, California has, like I said, there's the cannabis thing and then there's the greater issue. I'm fascinated right now. I've been talking a lot about the Governor's United Enforcement Task Force that they've put together here. I think that's really interesting. It's like Camp Part 2.
Yeah.
So it just kind of got started the end of 2021 and it's incorporating like all sort of the DEA, federal and state and local jurisdictions, and also administrative branches too. So they're hoping to basically hammer down on fines and collect fines and everything to pay for all this enforcement.
Wow.
And I that just sounds like, again,
Camp 2.0.
Camp 2.0. And so I'm interested, I'm kind of been following that. They reported for their first year, 312 million that they seized. I'm also interested to find, I think it's time for them to stop valuing the weed so high. If they're not, you know what I mean? They're like, all the time, I'm like, well, how many pounds was that? Because I don't know. What are you saying? What are you trying to say? $1,200 a pound?
$7,000 a pound.
You're going to stop with those inflated worths, but it was like, 191,000 plants eradicated. And, they do target these like illegal grows and all that. But now they're starting in this administrative branch. There's also been a lot of like FBI stings where they're posing as inspectors and even posing as DCC inspectors. And they're actually FBI and getting people on bribery and stuff like that. There's so much going on here, so much enforcement still, which I think is like a waste of money, and it's holding the industry back in that way, because it's like they're like, well, you got to pay for this too, and it's just like unfair, like that other markets are being able to do so much more already, and we should have been the leaders of it all.
Right. Life is strange, long, strange trip.
But we are still leaders of it all, regardless. We're 20 years ahead of everybody here in California. And we have 20 million acres of farmland, and we supply all the strawberries and the blueberries and the celeries from here to the rest of the country.
Yeah. I mean, it's a beautiful, amazing place. We'll just see what happens, I guess. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
So if you had one piece of advice for your younger self that started out in the cannabis industry, what would that one piece of advice be?
If I could do it all over again,
Yeah.
I would have become a doctor so I could prescribe people with weed.
Nice.
Period.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Because I want to convince so many people that are on the fence. I want to be able to help people. I want to whatever. And that seems to be like this barrier. And people think now that it's recreational, they think it's just a recreational. I'm like, no, it could help your stomach. It could help so many things. Not everything, but I feel
It's
like
medical, whether you believe it is or not. Dennis Perone said that.
Yes, exactly.
So tell us a story. The most famous person you hung out with, tell us a story about it.
The most famous person I hung out with?
Yes. I know you got some good stories. Ever.
Oh my God. I mean, that's just more of like who
Or someone that you smoke weed with.
I really liked hanging with Capadonna at the Emerald Cup a couple of years ago. And that was a good story too, because so I come up and the girl, Anik, I was telling you about from Black Market Certified, right?
Mm-hmm.
She's got strains, developing strains for Capadonna and Havoc from Mob Deep and a couple and Corrupt from the Dog Pound.
Yeah.
So she had all of them in this table at the Emerald Cup, and my homegirl Carmen, who's doing PR for Snoop Dogg or Robbie D Presents, she was like, "You did me a favor for something else with." You know, helped us with, made a network. I network a lot of people with like weed and the industry stuff. So she's like, I want you to come meet all these guys with this girl at Black Market Certified and Neek. So I go over there and Capadonna was so cool, but he was looking so hard. He had like rolled, like he had like 50 blunts he'd already rolled sitting there that he'd taken like a few hits off of because he was trying to find good skunk. He was like, so he was, it's a cup, right? All kinds of growers are there. All kinds of people are going to, if you're Capadonna especially or whatever, they're coming up to you and they're like, you know, you want to try this weed? I grew this weed, that weed, whatever. So
Right.
he's on the hunt for skunk. And I could tell by looking at that pile that it was like, you know, nothing was even close to what he wanted. Because if you find that weed that you love, like that flavor that you're looking for, because if you're a real stoner, you're that terp hound, right? You're like, this is the one. You know, clearly he hadn't. So we smoked with him. I had some like really like GMO back crosses, which I was like, well, man, you know, it's not skunk, but it's like in the area of like funk, right?
Yeah.
So you might like this. And he smoked it a little bit more than the rest of it, but it wasn't what he was looking for.
It's in the right family, at least.
Yeah.
I feel like that gas along with the skunk.
I thought that was interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Nice. Cool. Yeah, it's funny because there's so many people that smoke weed out there.
But like my big like superstar Gaga moment was smoking with Garth Cultivator.
Nice.
Maybe he's like my favorite.
That's awesome.
And the weed matched the attitude and the music that he, you know what I mean? Like I said, I still remember like getting that high.
Yeah.
Like off that. It was at Thanksgiving up in Humboldt.
Nice. So when you were a DJ, what kind of music? Was it house music?
Back in the day, DJ?
Yeah, back in the day.
Actually, I was, my old DJ name was Baby Panther, and I was like I did hip hop, and before dubstep was around, I used to take drum and bass and like turn it all the way down and put it over like rap a cappella. So I played battle style and like I scratched and stuff.
Oh, cool.
Vinyl.
Totally different. Yeah, I love the old school drum and bass. We had jungle music and drum and bass back in the day. Most people don't even know about like the drum and bass was way different back then.
Right. Like ground score and everything. Yeah. I worked at Compound Records back in the day. And I had Skibbity and like Shy Effects. I got real heavy into Ragga Jungle. So my show is actually very similar to what I used to play back in the day, which was a mix. Nice. Which is like the Bay Sesh, obviously, like these are events, but I'm giving it to everybody. I mean, you guys can just blame it on the radio show. It's the Bay Sesh, right? It's a radio show. But it was always the blend of like raves and reggae and like Storyville, like underground hip hop stuff, right? So I kind of go. It's funny because
people are doing that now, but you were way before your time.
Yeah.
Really cool.
They're bringing it back, But that is the Bay culture. It's really cool. What I learned about being in New York and like immersing myself that much and being here is like we are like one culture here. Like it's like one cool culture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love the Bay. I love NorCal. And when I say the Bay, I feel like the Bay all the way up to Oregon.
Yeah.
Is like still, it's all great. I love it all. And LA is its own thing too.
LA, exactly.
Yeah, LA, San Diego, it's its own thing. There's nothing wrong with it.
down there though.
Me too. I like visiting. Yeah. I like visiting. I have some really cool friends down there. I like a lot of things about it, but it's not where I would necessarily want to live. So I just find myself gravitated towards the Bay Area every time we leave. We end up coming back.
I'm coming back. I did a thing there. I wanted to bring the culture there. I did. I've met some people. I've enabled some people that feel confident about growing. I've taught a lot of people how to figure out what the good weed is versus whatever the weird stuff is. It took me like a lot of investigating to figure that out and, took some people under my wing. And then I'm ready to just come home because New York's going to do its thing. And I'd rather just be a visitor there in the future. Yeah.
Nice. Well, if people are looking to get a hold of you, where can they find you at?
They can follow me on everything at the Bay Sesh. You can find me there. So it could be the baysesh@gmail.com or at the Bay Sesh on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, maybe SoundCloud.
Wednesdays, 3 p.m.
Wednesdays,
Pacific.
3 to 6. You want to tune in on 89.5 FM, KZCT, OzCat Radio, Vallejo, in Vallejo. Goes like Richmond, wherever. You can also go to the link on my Instagram or use most FM tuner apps and tune into KZCT OzCat Radio. I have some shows on the SoundCloud and I have some videos on the YouTube.
Nice. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's been really fun. Thank you again.
Thank you. Let's look this bowl.